Okay, so I think we're going to get started. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Like I've said a couple of times, if you want to pop where you're from in the chat as you join, you're still welcome to do that. My name's Elise, and I'm the partner manager here at EzzyBills, and thanks so much for joining us. So today we're going to talk about managing your expenses with EzzyBills. So I'm sure most of you have used the software before, you're familiar with the basics. You know that the default behavior in EzzyBills is processing documents as supplier invoices. But there's a few other different types of expenses that we can often incur as businesses. And I think EzzyBills provides a really, really great way to process them and to keep track of them and to make sure that everything is imported properly into your accounting software. So EzzyBills is an accounts payable engine. We automate all functions of your accounts payable, including data extraction, management approvals, and e-invoicing. So today we are going to focus on expenses, but we really do so much more. And of course, we run webinars approximately once a month, and we talk about different functions of our product. And we also run webinars that sometimes just help provide general knowledge and advice to bookkeepers and accountants and people who work in those roles. And so if you ever have ideas for future webinars for us to run, feel free to be in touch, and we are always open to that. I'm joined by my colleague, Michael, who is also one of the presenters, and he'll also be available to help me answer any questions. So as we go, feel free to pop your questions in the Q&A section, and we'll try to get to them throughout the demo. But definitely, if we don't get to them through the demo, we will have some dedicated time for Q&A at the end. So we are going to talk about three main case studies. And then in those case studies, we'll sort of talk about the case study and then jump into sort of how you would set up that scenario in EzzyBills, and also how the scenario would look in your accounting software. Now, for the purposes of our demonstration today, I am going to be demoing the product with Xero, but our integrations with Mayab and QuickBooks are really very similar, and we can do all of the same functionality. So if you're a QuickBooks or a Mayab user, don't worry, you'll be able to set up and run all of the same functionality with the other accounting software as well. Okay, so the three cases that we are going to look at are as follows. So the first one is looking at an employee expense claim. And so that would be a situation where you're processing and reimbursing employees for expenses spent through their personal funds. So they've got personal credit card, personal bank account. They spend money for something related to the business, and then they need to be obviously reimbursed for that expense, and that needs to be tracked accordingly. The second situation that we're going to be looking at is processing and reconciling funds spent by the business owner on a company credit card. And so that's one sort of example of a spend money transaction. And then the third case that we're going to be looking at is processing and approving funds spent by employees on a company card. And so the difference between really the second case and the third case is that there's an approvals step in the process. And so somebody, a line manager, a finance manager, etc., needs to actually approve the expense before it gets submitted. And that's really one of the main differences of processing as a business owner versus processing as an employee. Okay, so here we go. Case number one, purchasing food. You run a cafe in a busy suburb. Occasionally, a staff member will need to go to the local supermarket to purchase additional food during very busy times. After they purchase the food, they will need to be reimbursed for what they spent. You want to be able to easily track their expenses and reimburse each staff member appropriately. So like I mentioned a minute ago, this would really be a case of employee expense claims. And so here's what it would look like in EzzyBills. So you want to go into your EzzyBills account and make sure you're connected to the appropriate company. And then what you want to do is go into the settings menu. And under the settings menu, there's an approval and expenses tab, which you want to click on. Now you're going to have this list of users approvers chart. And we're going to be using this chart a lot throughout this. So that's something so all you've got to do is click add approver. And then under name, what you want to do is write the name of the person who has incurred the expense. And so let's say, for argument's sake, the employee's name is Bob. Now here what you want to do is write the approver email if the expense needed to be approved. Now for this scenario, we're going to assume that it doesn't need to be approved because somebody's sort of cited the receipt, but we will talk a little bit later about cases where it does need to be approved. So we'll just say the approver is approver at busy.cafe.com.au. And for employee expense claims, we skip this business bank account section. We'll see that'll be relevant later when we talk about spend money. We tick the box in my expenses and we tick the box in bypass approval because we don't want the expense to be approved. And then we hit save changes. And after we hit save changes, we're going to get a unique upload email for Bob's expenses. And so what we do now is we take that unique upload email address, we pop it into our email, and then attach the receipt. And so this is the grocery receipt for the things that Bob has spent under his personal funds. And we hit send. And now in a few seconds, we'll see that come through to EzzyBills. And you can always go back to the dashboard, and the documents take anywhere between 30 and 45 seconds usually to process. And so once you send them through, they'll usually come through quite quickly. They're often a light green color at the beginning as they're processing. And then once they're finished processing, they'll turn to a dark green color like you can see these other ones have that I've processed in the past couple of days as I've been doing demos and preparing for this one. Now, one of the things that we'll see in a few seconds when this finishes processing is that there'll be the information on the document tile, and there'll also be a link to Xero. And so that's always really easy. If you want to figure out where the document is in Xero, once it's gone into the accounting software, you can just use this button on the invoice tile. And once the document processes, I'll also show you how to get to the document in other ways. So as we can see, that document has now turned dark green. And something that I just want to show you and point out is that, like other expenses, the tile now shows us the invoice number and that document has been successfully imported. It also gives us a bit of additional information, which we wouldn't normally have with a supplier invoice, which is that this is from Bob. And so that'll basically tell you that it's from Bob. So we know it's an employee expense claim. And then basically what EzzyBills does is it sets up Bob as a supplier. And so what happens now when we click on the Xero tab, we go into Xero and we can see the bill, which has been, the lines have been extracted and we've got the information in Xero. We've got obviously a scan of the invoice. And this has come up under bills to pay. And so when you're paying your other supplier invoices, Bob, who's basically your employee that has spent money on personal funds, is also lined up now as a supplier who needs to be reimbursed. And if you want to sort of see that, you can click on the bills to pay And when you've got your whole list of bills to pay and you want to look at the one that was most recently imported, it would be this one. So we've got the reference number. We know it's from Bob. And there's the date and the due date to reimburse Bob. So that is basically the first scenario. It's also important to just note that it always comes into draft bills. Under bills to pay, there are settings in EzzyBills that you can change it so that if you want the expense claim to come through as already approved, or another status, there are settings where you can change that. But for the basic setting for an employee expense claim, it'll just come in as a draft bill to pay, and then you'll be able to reimburse your employee Bob for that food that he's purchased at the supermarket. Okay, so that is case number 1. We'll move on now to case number 2. Okay, so this is scenario number 2. So purchasing equipment as the owner of a small electrical company. You're an electrician and spend your day doing both administrative tasks and on-the-job tasks fixing people's lights. You use your company credit card to purchase additional parts and supplies throughout your day. Sometimes you receive paper receipts, and sometimes the receipts are emailed to you. You don't want these invoices to come through to your accounting software, Supplier Invoices, as the money has already been spent. And so this is a classic example of a spend money transaction. So you're the business owner, or your employer is a business owner. They've got a company card and they set up, they pay for things on the company card. And then obviously the money has already been spent and all you want to do is be able to reconcile it. There's no need to set it up as a supplier invoice because it's already been paid. So here's what we would do in that scenario. So you go back into your EzzyBills account and we're going back to the settings menu and back to this list of users approvers table that we spoke about a couple of minutes ago. Now in this case, let's say that your name is John and you're the head of the electrical company. So we'll just do approver at johnselectrical.com.au. And the reason I sort of use the approver email as somebody named approver is really just to remind people that it's the approver's email and not the person who spent the money's email address that you want to put in. In some cases, this might be the business owner and they don't need to have an approval. And like we saw in the previous one, we'll bypass approval. But for any of these scenarios, you can either do them with or without an approver. Now, for this one, the crucial piece of information in this table is the business bank account. Now, the business bank account that we put into this table has to match with the business bank account that you want to reconcile with in Xero. So if I go to my Xero dashboard, I happen to be using a demo Xero company, but the business bank account is this number that I wanted to reconcile against. Now, the last 4 digits of the business bank account are 5678. And so those are the 4 digits that I need to put into my EzzyBills chart. Okay, so for business bank account, we'll put 5678. Now we're not going to tick my expenses because in this case, we don't want to set up the person as a supplier, and we want to bypass the approval. Okay, so we do the same thing. We save changes, and we've got a new upload email address, which is mycompany.john@EzzyBills.com. And again, in this case, John is the business owner, and he has already spent the money on his company card. So we'll do the same thing. We'll take that email address. We will pop it into an email. And we will take our Bunnings invoice and add it to the email and send it through. And again, I'm sure if you've used EzzyBills for other functionality, you know that you don't need a subject or any text in the body of the email, all you need to do is attach the relevant document and it will get processed. Now, compared to the document that we just processed, which came through as a supplier invoice with the employee to reimburse, in this case, the document's going to come through as a spend money transaction. So again, when the document finishes processing on the tile, we'll see that information on the tile that it's a spend money transaction. We'll see on the document tile who the person is who spent the money. And then we'll be able to go into our bank account and actually see that transaction and have the ability to reconcile it. Okay, so we've got a question that I might hand over to Michael to answer. Instead of a business bank account, is it possible to have it coded to a specific GL account, i.e. director spending money on his personal card, however repays himself once a year from the balance in the loan account?
Can you hear me on this?
Yep.
Okay. So I gather the question is, when a spend money transaction comes through, can it be set up to always have the same account code? And in that case, it's this spend money transaction. It's going to be treated like a normal sort of bill, and so the account history will be the same. So the history of what the supplier account codes are, what the settings are for that supplier. So the only way to get it to be the same for that particular person every time would be to either set it during approval. So during some approval process, you could set it then. The other way is you can, in the workflow, there is a workflow task which allows you to set the account code based on who this, I guess all the supplier is, but that wouldn't work. So it would have to be during approval. That would be the way that you could say every spend money transaction for a particular person gets a particular account code. It'd have to be done during the actual approval process.
Great, thank you. Okay, and I'll take the next question while we are here. Can the same person be set up for expense claims and as a person submitting credit card transactions? Yes, they can. You can have the same person setting up expense claims and credit card transactions. Okay, so it looks like this has processed. So I'm just going to show you the invoice tile again. And because of the way that we've set up the chart properly, EzzyBills knows that this has come through as a spend money transaction. And so it tells us on the invoice tile that it is set up as a spend money transaction and that John is the one whose expense it was. And so that's really helpful information. And again, just like in the other situation, there's two ways of getting to that file in Xero. So we can just click on the Xero tile in EzzyBills and it'll take us straight into the document and we'll be able to see all of the line items that have been extracted. We've got, again, in the reference field that the money was spent by John, and we've got the invoice number there. So we've got that information available. If we click on this little one, we can see the actual document. If you need to actually go back and see the original document for reference. So that's something that is available. And then the money comes through as a spend money transaction. So if you wanted to come into it through Xero directly, you go into your business bank account, your account transactions, and then you could see it here. It's this last line on the bottom. We've got this spend money transaction from John, which is currently unreconciled. And then, of course, if you could match it against the appropriate expense on your credit card, you would be able to reconcile it. Okay. Question, do they need 2 different email addresses to email to? No, you can use the same email address for the employee expense claims and the approver emails and the spend money transactions. That's not a problem. Okay, next question. Can we use EzzyBills as a standalone approval process and not import into an accounting system? We are using Accredo for a client and looking for an approval process. Michael, I might hand that one to you.
Yep. Sorry about that. Yeah, so it's not that unusual. We do have many customers who just use us for approvals. So Elise, can you just show the EzzyBills workflow, your current workflow that you're using?
Yeah.
So in this particular workflow, Lise doesn't have any approvals on, but if she did, it would be basically pre-extract, extract, and then be sort of an approval stage. And so if we added in an approval stage and we took out the Xero export, then basically we've gone and done the entire approval. So we would extract the information off the receipt or the bill, identify the supplier. You can have rules and logic and approval limits, etc. They can all be set during that entire approval process. The bill would be sent to whoever you decide should be approving things, or however the rules are set up. And so the approval process would occur, and the only difference would be there'd be no export to Xero. So at the end of the workflow, it would be finished, and so that would be the approval process without integrating with something else. Now, at the end of that approval process, you might want something to happen. You might want EzzyBills to store the document somewhere or email the approval audit trail or something like that, then that can be added as well. But yeah, there's nothing stopping you having an approval process within EzzyBills. It does the approval, and when the approval is complete, basically the workflow ends. And then the person, I guess, who's responsible for what happens after that, they can take care of it.
Amazing, thank you. And there's a follow-up question. Do the invoices store within EzzyBills? Yes, we do store all the invoices within EzzyBills for at least 7 years. And we have actually recently released new functionality where you can just set up an EzzyBills account purely as a document storage sort of facility. And so that's an option as well. Okay. Great. So I think we're going to move on to the third case. And in this case, we'll show you a little bit more about what the approvals process looks like, just so you can get a bit more of a sense of how it works. So here we've got a case of employees purchasing office supplies on a company card. So your client's a medium-sized law firm with many employees. Since most of the team is working remotely, each staff member has a company credit card that they can use to purchase office supplies and software subscriptions that they require. You want to be able to keep track of who has spent how much money and on which expenses. You also want your management team to be able to approve the expenses before being reconciled in your accounting software. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our chart in settings. And here, let's say we've got an employee named Mary. And this time for the approver email, I'm going to put my actual email address because I'm going to show you what that approval process actually looks like. And so we'll assume that I'm the approver in the law firm that needs to approve the documents before they go into Xero. Now we'll have our business bank account again because they're spend money transactions. But again, these approvals can be set up for any kind of expense. And so they can be for spend money transactions, for supplier invoices, or for employee expense claims. And so, yeah, you can use those approval functionalities across the board. We're not going to take the bypass approval or the my expenses this time because it's a spend money transaction and it's not an employee expense claim, and we do want the expense to be approved. And again, we save changes, and here is Mary's upload email address. So we will take Mary's upload email address, and this time we have a Officeworks invoice. Oh, sorry, that opened instead of dragging and dropping. Okay, so we've got an Officeworks invoice that is now processing. So basically the way the EzzyBills approvals works is the approval stage happens before the export into your accounting software. And so basically what we'll see in a second when the document starts processing is that instead of it being exported straight into Xero like the other documents did, the invoice will actually stop and it'll say awaiting approval by the approver, which in this case is Elise at ezzydoc.com. And then I will get an automated email which lets me view the document and either approve or reject it. Okay, and I'll take a question while that's processing. Can the EzzyBills process cater for a tiered multiple level decision-making approval process, or is it a single approver per employee? We can definitely cater for multiple level decision-making. We can cater currently up to 4 levels of approval. I'm not going to go into the details because it's probably a little bit beyond the scope of this webinar, but we can absolutely set it up in the workflow and sort of set up all sorts of different permutations and combinations. If certain departments need some approvers and other departments need other approvers, that's all definitely possible. Okay. So we'll just give that another couple of seconds, and soon we should see that they have sent an email to me waiting for approval. There we go. That email has come through. Or not. There we go. So we can see on the tile sending invoice for default approval. So as the approver, I should be receiving that email momentarily. There it is. Sorry, I'm in Melbourne, so everybody is working from home and schooling from home, so the internet is a little bit slower. Okay, so this is what our approval emails look like. And one of the unique things about the spend money transaction approval emails is that we do actually include this line. So it says who spent the money and which card they spent it on. And so if that's something that's relevant for the approver to know, then that's included in the email. We've got a copy of the document. And if you click on view document, then you can actually see the PDF of the document if you need to see all the details. We extract the basic information, supplier, invoice number, date, total, and tax, and then give the approver the option to do a couple of things. So approve, obviously that'll go through to the accounting software. If they reject it, then it'll come up as an error and the document won't proceed through to the accounting software. If they say it's not for them, then they have the option of either saying they don't know who it should be for, or they have the option of actually identifying a different approver who's a more appropriate approver in that case. And if they add a note or modify it, any notes that they add or modify at that stage of the process will go into the accounting software with the document. So that's a great way that if, approver wants to write that it's connected to a certain case or a certain project, all of those things can be added at this stage. So we will approve that expense. And then we can go back to our dashboard. And that document will continue processing. Okay, well, we are waiting for that. We will take another couple of questions. Okay, hi, just wondering, we are an accounting firm, and for the mobile app, if we can show multiple clients, if EzzyBills can read bank statements. So to answer the first question, yes, you can have multiple clients, and so on the mobile app, you can connect as many EzzyBills accounts as you want to your mobile app, and then you can toggle between clients as the accounting firm side, and as the client side, you can have as many clients as you want using the mobile app. There's a QR code, which I can show you in a minute, that basically allows people to connect their mobile app to EzzyBills. And then they can use that to scan and send documents. And two, if EzzyBills can read bank statements, yes, we can read bank statements. We've got what we call an app called Statement Reconciliation. So if we go into our apps, we've got sort of an app called Statement Reconciliation, and there's just a unique upload email address for that. So if you've got bank statements, you want to send them to the mycompany.app.sr@ezzybills.com. And what that'll do is it will actually go into your accounting software and check to see if those invoices are there and basically cross-reference and let you know which documents are there, are not there, and send you a report. Okay, will EzzyBills? Sorry,
Elise, I think they were asking about bank statements rather than statement reconciliation.
Okay, do you want to jump in?
Yeah. So in the case of like bank statements, there's actually, you see that app there, bank statements. So we do, we can extract from a bank statement the columns of information. So if you had an NAB statement which you uploaded to EzzyBills, then we should be able to extract the details and generate an Excel file off it. So yeah, we do that.
Great, thanks, Michael. Okay, well, EzzyBills pick up duplicate invoices that are already in Xero. So that just depends on your settings. So we've got a setting called duplicate checker. And so if that setting is turned on, we will check invoices to see if they're already in your accounting software and notify you. And if the setting is not on, then it won't. So that's a setting that can just be turned on in your settings if that's something that is relevant.
And that's probably the one setting when somebody moves from trial to live is turning that on. So in the trial, duplicate checking is off, not just because people tend to upload invoices that already exist for testing purposes, but so in settings, if you go to settings, Elise, you'll see that there's a check for duplicate in there on account settings. And so that's probably the one thing that you'd want to turn on when you start using EzzyBills for real.
Amazing. Okay, so I think we're going to go back just to finish the demo in case people have to go, and then we'll pop back to the questions. Okay, so we were on our dashboard. I approved the expense. Like you can see, just like in the other one, that's also come through as spend money transaction. And again, this was Mary who spent the money from Officeworks. And then in order to see that in Xero, we can go back into Xero, go into our business bank account, and we can see this transaction again, unreconciled from Mary. And we've got her name as the reference, which is the reference that we put into that settings chart, and the invoice number. And then we can always just click back on that if we want to see how that information has come through to EzzyBills. Okay, so that is basically the 3 cases. Okay, I think we'll jump back to the questions. Okay. Are we able to use EzzyBills to convert bank statement from PDF to Excel? Michael, I'll let you handle that one.
Yes, that's the typical use of our bank statement. That's what people use us for. So yes, whether it's a PDF or a scan, yes, that's exactly what we do. If you upload to that bank statement app, and we will generate an Excel file from it, or a CSV file, one or the other.
Amazing. Okay, does an approver have to have access to an EzzyBills login to approve, deny invoices to be approved? It's a great question, and it's a common question, and the answer is no. So you can have anybody on your team who you want to have an approver, and like we saw, you can set them up as an approver, and they'll receive those automated emails, and they can choose to approve or reject or do any of those things that we spoke about a few minutes ago, and they don't have to have an EzzyBills login, and so they don't need to have access to anything else in your account other than the expenses that are relevant for that individual person to be approving. So one app login, and I can auto switch to different client in apps, right? Yes, exactly. So on the mobile app, you'll have one login, and then you'll have a list of all of your different clients. And you can just toggle back and forth, and then whatever client you want to upload documents for, you just want to make sure that that client is sort of highlighted in green as kind of the way the app looks, and then you can upload to their file. Is statement reconciliation an extra cost to the account? No, statement reconciliation is not an extra cost to the account. All of our plans are just based on the number of documents processed through EzzyBills, and they can be any types of documents, supplier invoices, spend money transaction, employee expense claim statements. None of those are extra cost. They're all just count as one individual document. Is there a timeline for statement reconciliation to have a framework portal to customize it like they can with invoices? The timeline to have statement errors corrected is extremely long. Michael, I might.
Yeah, let me read that. Can you ask that question again?
Sure. Okay. Is there a timeline for statement reconciliation to have a framework portal to customize it like they can with invoices? If staff could access a portal to customize the statement reconciliation like they can for invoices, that would be a huge value add of the product.
Okay, so I can guess what the question is, but I may not be right. So probably the best is them to reach out for us direct. So the timeline to have statement errors corrected is extremely long. The timeline for statement to have a statement errors corrected. Yeah, you know, I don't know. Yeah, I think, yeah, just Keelan, just reach out to me and maybe we'll have a talk about it. What I can say is, you know, statement reconciliation is a process which basically happens pretty well independently of other things. You email in a statement and we generate a report. And that that report basically allows you to access, it'll tell you which statements or which invoices have been paid and not paid and are missing and that sort of stuff. So all that information is kind of available from within a report. And the you know, the date ranges and things like that we're looking at, we're basically looking into the accounting system and as far back as we have to find it. So yeah, probably just reach out to me and we can talk about exactly what you're after, and then I might be able to answer better.
Amazing. And I'm sure everyone can see the contact details are on the screen, so definitely feel free to reach out. Okay. Is there a way to extract suppliers from accounting software into EzzyBills so that it links relevant info when processed through? So the simple answer is the way that EzzyBills works is different than some of the other players in the industry. And so any settings that you want to set up directly in Xero. So for example, if there's a specific GL code for a certain supplier, you can set it up in your suppliers in Xero, and EzzyBills will pick that up, and we pick up GL coding based on your history and your accounting software, and we match. We use kind of machine learning to match what's been done in the past and have that same thing coded in the future. Another thing that you can do is if you do need to update things at a line level, you can update them in the draft invoice and then go back into EzzyBills, and we've got a refresh learn button. So actually I'll just show that to you quickly. So if we've got an invoice, so for example, if this account code, that's a spend money. But if the account code for a draft invoice was wrong, you basically could modify it in Xero. And then when you go back into EzzyBills in the settings, we have this refresh learn button. And basically if you hit that button, basically what it does is it goes back into your accounting software and it looks to see if there have been any changes. And then if it sees that you've made a change to a supplier GL code or a GL code and invoice, then it'll save that and remember it for future.
Yeah, one thing I would add is that when we export to Xero, we're exporting based on the suppliers in Xero. So we don't just look at the document, think it's Bunnings. We actually extract the information off the document, then we search all your suppliers in Xero and match it. And so when it goes through to Xero, it'll be based on your list of suppliers and the information that's in Xero. So the general workflow is simply to do that. We're pretty confident we can identify the supplier and we'll push it through. Yeah.
Great. Okay, for scenario 2, can you show how the spend money transaction matches in the credit card reconciliation? So I don't have bank feeds set up in my account.
At this point here, it's once it gets to the bank account or this as a spent money transaction, it's no different than if you'd manually created it. So the reconciliation or the algorithms that Xero uses is not going to be any different. It's going to look to match on amounts and references and things like that.
Okay, what is the onboarding process? So it's really quite simple to get started. We have, if you're not yet using EzzyBills, we've got a free trial. You can go to our website, ezzybills.com, start a free 30-day trial, and then someone from our team will get in touch to see if you've got any questions. We also run sort of more basic demos of the product on an ongoing basis. And for people who purchase larger subscriptions, we are also available for some training and some onboarding, and we are really here and available to help. So just get in touch with us if you want to set up a one-on-one demo or some onboarding for you or your staff or your clients. Get in touch and we're happy to arrange that. Are there any places in Xero we can see the spent expenses aside from the bank account it was linked to? Michael?
I don't, I'm not the foremost expert on Xero, but I don't believe so. I believe if you wanted to see see these transactions before they got put into into that bank account area, then you would need to probably not process them as a spent money transaction, process them as just as a bill. Then you'd have to link them yourself. I don't think there's anywhere else they get dropped into apart from linked directly against that bank account. If you want them in a draft area or something, you'd have to process them as a bill.
Okay. Can we change the name of the supplier in Mayab when uploading the Through EzzyBills app? Can we change the name of the supplier in Mayab when uploaded through the EzzyBills app?
Yes, you can. So when using the mobile app, you need to turn on the review mode. So on the mobile app, there's the settings, and the settings, there's like a little, I guess a switch it's a switch, and it says review. So you turn that on, and then what will happen is EzzyBills will, takes about 10 seconds to identify all the information about the bill or the receipt, as far as we know, and then we'll populate it in a little sort of a form on your phone. And at that point, you'll see who we think the supplier is. And if you wanted to change the supplier, then you can do it at that point. So if you want to do it via the mobile app, then yes, you need to turn on review. In other scenarios, then you'd use approval to do that.
Okay. How long will the bills be processed by EzzyBills once loaded in? So if I understand the question correctly, it takes about 30 to 45 seconds for bills to be processed once they're emailed in. And everything I've showed you today in the demo was done live. So nothing was pre-recorded or done beforehand. So that's approximately how long it takes, with maybe a little bit of variability based on internet speeds. How to set up spend money transactions for petrol receipts when uploaded on EzzyBills through the mobile app by different users. So on the mobile app, you can also set up the alias and.
Oh, sorry, Elise. Sorry, go ahead. You're saying the right thing. Sorry.
Okay. So on the mobile app, you can set up an alias, and so in this settings table that we've been working on, you set up the name here, and so basically in the mobile app, there's a line that says alias, and if you put let's say Mary's name into that alias field, then it'll process as if it was this upload email address. And so that's how you would do it. They could just put their individual name and it'll upload as a spend money transaction. And it could be petrol receipts, it could be any kind of receipts. In mobile app, I can't turn on the review receipts if I turn on multi-page. Question mark?
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, that's just how it is. Basically, the logic is that if it's multi-page, then there might be multiple receipts, so there'd be multiple documents to be reviewed, and it just become all very confusing. So the logic is if you put review on, then we're assuming it's one document, only one document. So yeah, you can't have multi-page. By you can't have the multi-page and review at the same time.
Okay, and I think there are some questions in the chat. I'm just going to take a look at the chat. Okay, request for deeper demo. Okay, Craig, we'll get in touch. Not a problem. That was already asked. Will a copy of this recording be available to show others? Yes. So we will we'll email out a copy of this recording to everyone who registered, and then you're free to share it with whoever you want. And we'll also post a copy of it on our YouTube channel, and so people are free to access it there. Okay, I think. Okay. In mobile app, if I turn on the. Okay, so I think they're just asking for clarification, Michael, about the single page and multi-page. Like if you have the review receipts on, will it know if you can do single page or multi-page?
Okay, so I'll just go through them. So what multi-page means is you might have 4 invoices or 4 receipts, and you're just going to go capture, 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 capture. And what we will do is we'll do basically auto separation of those. So you might take might be a 4-page invoice and you capture it all 4 pages. Until we've analyzed it, we don't know it's 4 pages, 4 invoices or 1. So if you've got multi-page on, basically it just means that document's going to get uploaded to EzzyBills, we'll process it, but there'll be no opportunity for reviewing within the phone. If you want to review things, in the case of a multi-page document, then you need to turn off review on the phone and turn on approvals within EzzyBills, and then you can do the reviewing within the approval system. If you want to review the results of a receipt on the phone, then it has to be a single page, and you turn off multi-page. So yeah, that's how it works.
Amazing. I just want to show one thing that I mentioned before. So in the settings, this is the QR code to link the mobile app. And if you do want either people who don't want to give access to your EzzyBills account, but you do want to give them access to the mobile app, you can just click on this, email me the EzzyBills mobile how to link. And basically what that'll do is it'll send you a PDF of the instructions of how to download the mobile app, and it'll have a copy of this QR code. And then you can send that out to the client or the employees or the contractors or anybody who you want to be able to download the mobile app and use it to send in their expenses without having to give them access to your EzzyBills dashboard. Okay, I think we've come to the end of the questions that we've got so far. Any final questions? Any final questions before we finish? Okay, so Michael, anything final to add?
No, good job, Elise.
Thanks. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. For those of you who have been clients for a while, you know we're always here and available if you've got any questions. So feel free to reach out to us if there's anything we can do to help. And hopefully you've learned